Hi and welcome back. In the last video we went ahead and began to learn about HTML and how it basically works. And we covered some basic structural tags as well as some basic semantic tags such as the head and the body tag and the H1 and the P tag. In this video I want to talk about three more different sets of HTML tag. I want to talk about tags for creating links. I want to talk about the HTML for setting up tables, and I want to talk about the HTML for inserting images into our website. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to talk about links. And just as there were a couple different types of links that we worked with in the initial videos, internal links and external links, we're going to see a couple different ways to do that here in this video. Now to begin, links are contained in an A tag, and the A actually stands for anchor. So that's a little less intuitive than some of the other tags that we've looked at, such as H1 and P. But basically, you're going to go ahead and set this up in exactly the same way, tab that on over, as you would any other tag inside of HTML. I just do an opening A tag and a closing A tag. And again, just like my list item, I've got an opening list item here and a closing list item. And then whatever is inside of the tag, or in this case inside of the anchor tag, is going to become the actual link itself. So think back to our initial videos. We did a few links. Up at the top we had the welcome link to our home page, and then we had about, and we had contact. So if I want the word welcome to be the text that forms the link, I just simply put that text inside of my A tag. Now the question you ought to be asking yourself right now is, okay, well that forms the link, but how do I specify where the link actually goes to? And the answer is you're going to need to use an attribute. Now we haven't done any attributes up to this point, but basically whenever you hear the word attribute, I want you to just think of the word property or characteristic. An attribute is a characteristic or a property of a tag. It adds some information to it. Now again, if you go back to the handout, there were a number of attributes listed in that, and I'll go ahead and bring that up really quickly here. And if I scroll down, here was my HTML vocabulary list, and there are all my tags, and here is the list of attributes. Now there are obviously more attributes than what I have listed here, just as there are more tags than I have listed initially. But these are the most commonly used tags, and these are the ones that you're going to want to really remember as we go forward. And actually the ones that are going to be important for this series are going to be the ID and the class attributes that we haven't talked about yet, the alt attribute, the href attribute, and one other one called source, or SRC. So go ahead and minimize that. And the attribute that we're going to use to specify the target for the link, actually I said target, I shouldn't have said that. The target is something a little bit different. The attribute that I'm going to use to specify where the link goes is going to be the href attribute. And I write an attribute basically like this. And it's always going to follow this format here. It's always going to follow this format, regardless of what attribute you're using. It's always going to follow the format name equals, and then in quotation marks, the value for the attribute. So the name of the attribute equals, and then the value inside of quotation marks. And I'll tell you one thing I do a lot is I forget to close my quotation marks there when I'm typing my attributes out. It's just something that is stuck in my head. So if you ever have a problem with your links or your tags, one thing to look for is, did you in fact close all the quotation marks on your attribute? So this tag basically right here creates a link on the word welcome. And then when you add this attribute href, that tells the browser where to send the visitor when they actually click on the link. Now, Expression Web actually will help you out with this part right here. And in this case, I'm assuming index.html is in the same folder as the page that's linking to it. But if it wasn't, you would need to not only include the file name that you wish to open, but also the path to that file name. So when you're typing out an attribute like this, when you type the initial quote, you're going to see a little tooltip appears here called Pick URL. And if you click on that or select it, it's going to bring up this Edit Hyperlink dialog box. And you're going to be able to use this to navigate to the exact page that you wish to link to. And again, in this case, it's fairly simple because I'm linking just to the exact same folder. So there is no path, just a file name there. But if you do have a page buried down in a folder, oftentimes that can be really helpful in speeding things up and making sure you type everything in correctly. Now, if I wanted to create an external link, a link to an external website, I would follow the exact same format. I would go ahead and open up an anchor tag, and then whatever text you place inside of the anchor tag is going to be the text that forms the link. So this is going to be a link from the text. Click here to go to Timothy Web Design. And again, we need to include that href attribute in order to tell the browser where to send the visitor once they've clicked on the link. Now, since this is an external link, I need to type in the full web address, just like we did before. So it's going to be http:// and then whatever the web address is that you want them to go to. And again, if it was a really long web address, you could open that up in a browser and simply copy and paste it in here. So in this case, this text here is going to become the link, and when the user clicks it, they're going to go to whichever page is indicated in the href attribute. So links are fairly simple to set up. Now, one other thing that we did when we were initially learning about Expression Web is we saw how normally links, just when they're clicked, open up in the exact same window as the page that it was linked to. But you could also specify that when the user clicks that link, it opens another new window, or that it opens a new tab, depending on what the browser settings are. And you do that with a second attribute. You're going to include a second attribute in your link. So I'm going to go ahead and click after the href attribute, and the name of the attribute that we're going to use is going to be target. And again, the value needs to be inside of quotation marks. And if you want the link to open up in a new window or a new tab, the value for the attribute is going to be _blank. Don't forget the underscore, that's very important. And again, don't forget to close your quotation marks. And that should be fairly easy to remember, because when we were going through this initially, and we were in the Edit Hyperlink or Create Hyperlink dialog box, to add that feature to our links before, the button we clicked on was called Target Frame. And again, all that button did was it added this attribute to our link. And I'll go ahead and save that. And when we look at this in Design View, you're going to see, actually I left that in there when I was typing that in. I need to come down here and delete that. Can't have any extra code there. Save that, go into Design View, and there you see our two links, Welcome, and click here to go to Timothy Web Design. Now, one thing that you're going to notice right off the back is that these items are being displayed very differently than the other items that we've placed, or the other elements or tags we've placed in our document. Here, when we had H1, P, or UL in the individual LIs, every time we end a tag, it forms a new line, or it goes down to a new line to put the next piece of content. You see that there. But our links here, even though they're on different lines, and even though we're closing that tag, they're showing up next to each other. There are two different ways that, actually there are more than two, but there are two basic ways that elements can be displayed in HTML. They can be displayed in what's called block format. And when an element or tag is displayed in block format, every time you close the tag, it gives you a line break to put the next piece of content on a different line. H1, P tags, LI tags, those are all examples of block level tags. They'll create a line break when you close the tag. The second basic way that elements or tags are displayed in HTML is inline. And as the name there suggests, inline elements don't create a new line when you close the tag. Any elements that come after that will just be lined up. The elements are in line. Now, that actually is a very important concept for working with CSS. And we're going to revisit it later. But for right now, I just want you to remember that there is a difference between a block level element and an inline level element. And it's basically, for our purposes right now, the difference is block level elements form a new line when you close the tag. A new line on the page when you close the tag. Whereas inline elements just line elements up. And in this case, A tags are inline elements. You can very easily change that a variety of different ways by either writing your HTML in a particular way or by using CSS and writing CSS out in a very specific way using a CSS property. And you're going to see both of those elements as we go forward. So that's the basics of creating links inside of HTML. Now, the next tag that I want to show you how to create is an image tag to insert an image onto your web page. And image tags are written just a little bit differently than other tags inside of HTML. Image tags are what they call self-closing tags, meaning you don't actually need an opening and a closing tag here. You still need to close it, but they aren't two separate tags. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead here and insert an image between these two paragraphs. And the tag name that I'm going to go ahead and use is IMG. And we need to specify the location of the image that we wish to display on the page. In this case, we've added a number of images to our images folder. If you haven't downloaded the framework and added the images, just go ahead and find any image and save it in your images folder, and you can use it for this purpose. And we're going to specify the image that we wish to insert into the page by using the source attribute, or the src attribute. And again, it's written in the same format, src equals, and then a quotation mark, and then you put the name and the path to the image that you wish to display. And again, ExpressionWeb has this great tool here, Pick URL, that you can go ahead and click on or select and hit enter, that's going to allow you just to browse to that image, and it will automatically put the correct path in for you. And I'm going to go into my images folder here, and I'm just going to go ahead and use this sample image right there. And you can see that it went ahead and put, again, both the path and the file name in there. And again, you've got to remember to close your quotation marks. Now, if the image tag was following the same format as the other tags that we had written, we would probably close this opening IMG tag just like this, and then we would go ahead and do a closing tag. And the problem here, and you can see the error that ExpressionWeb is showing us, is that we would need some content inside of the opening and closing tags, just like we do for a paragraph or an anchor or a list item. But image tags don't need any content. They're just pointers to a file that's in your website that you wish to display. So they do something to display an image, but all that is an attribute in the opening tag. So you don't actually close the tag like that. What you're going to go ahead and do, whoops, deleted a little too much there, is just type a space after the source attribute and then a slash and the closing tag right there. Now, if you are the closing bracket. Now, you can also close your image tags just like that. But this won't work in all browsers, whereas including the slash is pretty much browser proof. So that's how you basically specify an image inside of HTML. And when we go ahead and go here into Design View, you can see there's our image being displayed on the page. So the image attribute, very, very simple to specify. Now let's go ahead and combine the two things that we've just done. We've just learned how to create a link, and we just learned how to put an image into our page. What if you want to use an image as a link as we did before? Well, again, that's going to be fairly simple to do. I'm going to go ahead here and click below my second paragraph. And again, to put in a link, what you do is you simply open an anchor tag, use the href attribute, target, or I'm sorry, I used the word target, specify what page or site you want it to open, close your opening tag, and then close your A tag. So again, this is exactly like what we did before. And before, we just typed some text into our anchor tag, and that text became the actual link. But we want an image to be our link. So instead of typing in text there, what you're going to do is you're going to embed an image tag. And you can see where this is going already. I'm going to select Pick URL there. And I'm going to go ahead and specify another image here. And then I'm going to go ahead and again, oops, I forgot to close my quotation mark. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my image tag just like that. So this time, this image is the content for the A tag, or is embedded in the A tag. So that image is going to be the link, just as though, or just like if we entered some text in there. It's the exact same thing. We'll save that and come in here to Design View. And whoops, you know what? I didn't type that in right. What mistake did I make here? I forgot my opening quotation mark there. Got to remember your quotation marks. Save that and go into Design View. And there you can see the bottle. And you can even see there's a blue outline around that bottle, indicating that this is a link. So in this way, you can combine the two tags. Now, the final thing that I want to go ahead and talk about in this video are tables. Now, tables at first glance can appear fairly complicated to set up using HTML, but it's really not. You're really only talking about knowing 4 tags inside of HTML. The first tag that you're going to need to know is the table tag. The second is going to be the TR tag, or the table row tag. The third and the fourth are going to be the TH tag and the TD tag. And this is a table header cell and a table data cell. And basically, these form the individual columns inside of a row. The only difference between these two is a TH indicates that this is a header cell. And for right now, we're going to go ahead and forget about TH, and we're just going to focus on these 3: table, TR, and TD. So let's go ahead and delete those. And I'm going to go ahead here and click in underneath my 2 links there. And I'm going to go ahead and create a table by doing an opening table tag and then a closing table tag. So these 2 tags, or this tag, indicates that the definition of a table is going to come in between them. Now, first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to specify the number of rows that you're going to want in your table. And I'm going to go ahead and create 3 rows in my table. So I have an opening table row tag and a closing table row tag. And since I've done that 3 times, there are going to be 3 different rows inside of my table. Now, whatever is embedded inside of, or nested inside of, these TRs is going to become the content for that row. Just as whatever's embedded inside of the table tag is going to become the content for the table. So you create your table, and then you create the number of rows that you're going to need for your table. Then you're going to go ahead and specify the table header or data cells. I'm going to go ahead, and again, we're ignoring headers right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do TD and then a closing TD. And let's say I wanted this to be a 3-row, 3-column table. I would just repeat that 3 different times, just like that. And that gives me 3 cells or 3 columns in this row. And I would repeat that for each one of the rows that are in my table. And that's all you need to do to set up a table that has 3 rows and 3 columns inside of it. Now, the content for your table is going to go inside of your TDs. So let's say I wanted to create that test scores table like we did before. I could do name, test 1, test 2, and then I could do John and put his first score in for test 1 and his second score for test 2, and then Mary, and Mary did better than John, and we'll put Mary's test scores in. And when we go ahead and look at this in Design View, you can see the table that's been inserted there that we've created. Now, you might be thinking to yourself at this point, you know what? That's a lot of typing just to set up a table when I could really easily just set this up in Design View. And it would be a lot faster. And the answer is yes, you could do that. And when I'm creating tables, a lot of times I do that. I use the table, insert table here option to set my tables up. And it's not that it's bad to use Design View, but it's bad to try and set up the structure for your page in Design View. When you're working with content, Design View can be a great help and can really speed things up for you. But the important point is to remember that unless you understand what Expression Web is doing behind the scenes when you're doing table, insert table, unless you understand this HTML code here, when something goes wrong and something isn't being displayed correctly, or if you want to do something a little bit more advanced that's beyond what you can do in Design View, you won't have any idea where to go unless you know, again, the HTML that's behind what's going on here. So that's the reason why it's important to understand these basic table tags. Now, one more thing about tables. We talked about there was a TD tag and a TH tag. They work exactly the same. The only thing that a TH tag does is it marks a cell as a header. So in this case, really the first row here is the header for my table. The rest of these items are just data in the table. So I would have wanted to actually use THs here. And I need to also match those closing tags right there. And save that. And you can see when I go into Design View, everything is exactly the same with the exception that the default formatting for a TH is for it to appear in bold as opposed to regular type that a TD would be displayed in. So that's the basics of setting up links, using images, and creating tables with HTML. The next video, we're going to go ahead and it's going to be the last video in this introduction to HTML part, and then we're going to start working on our project. But in the next video, we're going to talk about some more structural tags. Actually, we're going to talk about one more tag, the div tag, and how you can use that to structure the content that's in your page. I'll see you in the next video.